Topic for our today's video is simple bracket key. In the previous video, we have discussed the taxonomic characteristics of fruit flies and the grouping of these taxonomic characteristics and then the formation of simple non-bracketed dichotomous key. So if you want to watch that video, I will add the link in the description box. So the topic for today's video is simple bracket key. So the name indicates that the continuation of key is represented in the form of figures or numbers that are presented in parentheses or brackets. It can be easily run in forward and backward direction. So in the next slide we will see that how to make a simple bracketed key. Then you will be able to know that how can you run it in the backward direction as well. Next is it is an excellent key for diagnostic purposes. This table indicates the grouping of specimens based upon their morphological characteristics. So we have divided the specimens in group A and group B on the basis of their wing morphology. Next, now how to make a simple bracketed key. We have grouped the specimens on the basis of their wing morphology. The group A members have wings that are mostly hyaline, whereas the group B members have wings that are mostly opaque. So we will arrange these characteristics, the alternatives of wing morphology, in the form of couplets. So at the number 1 you can see that we have arranged it in alternative couplets as wing mostly hyaline and wings mostly opaque. So next, the number 2 indicate that you will move forward towards the number 2, the character that is mentioned at the number 2. So at 2 there are successive alternatives of coastal band morphology, that is coastal band dilated apically and coastal band not dilated apically. So at this point you can see that after figure 2 or number 2 there is one that is written in parentheses. This indicates that if you are going to run the key in the backward direction, you will pair these characteristics with the character that is mentioned at number 1. If you are going to run it in the backward direction, you will move from 2 towards the character that is mentioned at 1. Okay, so the numbers mentioned at both these points here and here are useful for running the key in the forward as well as in the backward direction. So next you can see there after the coastal band not dilated apically. Next you will move from the coastal band dilated apically. There is a number mentioned 3. The character that is mentioned at number 3 is scutalar bristles 1 pair. If the specimen that you have identified has wings that are mostly hyaline. Next, moving towards 2, coastal band dilated apically. Next, moving towards 3, scutalar bristles 1 pair, that it is identified as Bactrocera cucurbitae. Okay, now running the key in the backward direction. How will you run it in the backward direction? You can see here 3, the character that is mentioned at point 3 is scutalar bristles 1 pair. You can see there is the number that is mentioned here is 2. Next you will move backwards at 2. So at number 2 you can see the coastal band dilated apically. After this, the number that is mentioned here in parentheses is 1. Then you will move backward towards 1 and that character mentioned is wings mostly hyaline. And you can see you can counter check your key. If you are running the key correctly, you can counter check it by the numbers that are mentioned here. Okay, so next is if the scutellum has 2 pairs of bristles, then it will be identified as Bactrocera tau. Next, moving towards the coastal bands not dilated apically, point 4. If the specimen has wings that are mostly hyaline. Okay, next, coastal bands not dilated apically and the thorax with median yellow stripe, then it will be identified as Bactrocera diversa. And if the thorax is without any median yellow stripe, then it will be identified as Bactrocera dorsalis. Next, moving towards our second morphological character for wing morphology, that is wings mostly opaque. Then you will run it in forward direction, that is from number 1 to number 5. So here 5 and the number 1 mentioned here, it will if you are running it in the backward direction, you will move from this towards 1. If the wings are mostly opaque, wings with stripes. If wings are with stripes, you will move forward towards 6. Okay, and then the alternative is wings reticulate. If reticulate, then you will move towards number 7. So at wings with stripes has next further two alternatives for scutellum, that has may have 5 black spots or 4 black spots. If there are 5 black spots on the scutellum, that it will be identified as Carpomaya vesuviana, and if it has 4 black spots, then it will be identified as Carpomaya ziziphus. And if the wings are opaque, wings are reticulate, and the posterior margin of wings has 3 hyaline spots, that it will be identified as Tephrochura xanthotricha, and if it has 5 hyaline spots, that it will be identified as Pathulina acrolusa. So in this way you can run a simple bracket key in forward and backward direction, and the numbers mentioned in parentheses as well as the numbers mentioned here are both used for running the key in the forward as well as in the backward direction.